Justin Turner is a Cub, and we project the opening day roster once again.
You are Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cubs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, alongside Sam Olber. I'm Matt Cozy. Sam and I are lifelong fans, taking our passion into a discussion with you on all things Cubs. Thank you for being part of the show and making us your first listen today. And the best way you can help us grow the show is to join us every day and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We're taking a look at the veteran non-roster invitees, updating the opening day roster projection. And we're going to start with Justin Turner, as the Cubs and Justin Turner have agreed to terms on a 1-year, $6 million deal, 2.5 M's in incentives possible for him. Cubs rumored interest in pivoting to Turner from Alex Bregman dates back to early last week, and Jed Hoyer got it done. Turner's wife, Courtney, is from Indiana, and they liked the idea of spending the season with the Cubs so much that, according to MLB Network's John Morosi, they took less money than from other teams. We know Turner established himself as a big leaguer. That was with the Mets before elevating his career with the Dodgers. And he's going to pair with Michael Busch at first, as well as provide some ABs at DH. So we'll get to all of these types of breakdowns, Sam. A nice veteran addition in what is likely the last major league addition, I would think, before opening day.
Yeah, I like this move. I talked about it on my instant reaction this morning. I like a Justin Turner type. You know me.
Right.
You know the type of player I like. I like a guy with playoff experience, World Series winning experience. I like a guy that could give a good AB late versus a tough pitcher. I like a guy that gets on base. I like a guy that's good in the clubhouse. I mean, the way I compared it this morning was I think offensively it really is a similar skill set to Tauchman with a little bit more pop. Tauchman last year at a 357 OBP. Last year, Justin Turner at a 354 OBP. And a lot of that came late. He got going in the second half. He was much better with Seattle.
Right.
I like the move. You have to sometimes take these acquisitions and you have to look at them in a vacuum, because it's like the easy thing to do. And you can't do this when you do a podcast, is to come on and go, well, they didn't get Bregman. So, it's like, okay, that's over with now. And so the next step, and I'll go as far as to say this.
Okay.
I probably would rather have 1 year of Justin Turner over the 4-year whatever you had to pay Alex Bregman with all the opt-outs. I think it's probably the better value. And I believe in Matt Shaw and Matt, a lot of Matts. That's the biggest thing for me, is even though Justin Turner won't play third a whole lot for this ball club, what the knowledge that he could bring to Matt Shaw, both on and off the field in his rookie year, I mean, those guys should be attached at the hip, don't you think?
Yeah, and I think the would you rather question is great talk show fodder that we approached last week, which was in the event that Horner would be traded if they actually signed Bregman, which might have been all for show. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But it would have been Bregman and Shaw, or Horner, Shaw, and Turner. And I think that trio is a formidable one this year. I am curious to hear Turner's public comments for the first time, because you mentioned about the OBP of 354, also had a WRC plus of 117, but that was pretty much as a full-time dude. And so now taking a part-time role with the Cubs, I am wondering what he's going to say about that. The Cubs today had some great words for Turner, Happ and Swanson, especially. So I'm encouraged by that. And you're right. He really ended the season well. Last 20 games last year, on base of 407, and he hit 318.
Well, that'll play.
I'm not sure if that, transitions into this year. I don't know if it matters at all, but it's encouraging for a player who could provide these spurts at different times of the year. And if the Cubs are where they should be, Turner in a part-time role, shoot, the last 20 games of this year, that would be pretty fun. Fangraphs does project him with a 106 WRC plus this year. So Sam, first base and DH primarily, right?
Yes.
But he could finish a game at third. He could finish a game at second. But I think when the first lefty, was it Vesia for the Dodgers? Who's going to come out of the pen in Japan? I think Turner's going to sub for Bush.
Yeah, and there's a
and start against lefties against Arizona and the A's, all those early season games, and so on.
There's a Tanner Scott late too. If you don't want to,
that's right.
If you don't want to plug, take out Bush that early, because I still don't want Bush to be just relegated to only facing righties. But now you have the insurance policy of that. My only concerns with the acquisition would just be, look, we've seen this with Hosmer and Mancini, the older guys, and Wrigley. He's not a great hitter. I think he's like 180, 190 at Wrigley in very limited sample size. Just so in terms of just like, if the wind's not blowing out, will he be able to get the ball into the jet stream and hit it out? And it's like, one of my biggest, and I like this move. One of my biggest frustrations since we've had this show, I would say, was how long they waited to cut ties with Mancini in a year where they missed the playoffs by one game. I just thought it was reprehensible. I really did.
Waited until early August.
It was because they paid him a lot. Don't make that same mistake. And I guess it's kind of contradictory because last year Turner did get hot late, so he, maybe he has a little more leeway, but like, just be smart about it. Just because he's a veteran and accomplished, don't force it. But I think this limited role, I think it's a really nice fit. And like you said, in a pinch, he could play over at third. If there's an injury to the outfield, boom, Seiya moves over to the outfield. Now you have your regular DH and you feel fine about it. And for me, it's not the stats with Turner. It's the, hey, man on third, one out. You're down a run, ninth inning. He's facing Tanner Scott. I feel good. I feel good with him up there. I feel like he could put a professional at bat together to find, a hole on the right side or to hit a sac fly, something like that. So you can't really put a price tag on that or put a metric on that. Of course, his most infamous moment in our lives, do you remember?
Well, was it 2017 playoffs?
Yeah, I think it was either game 1 or game 2. I think it was game 2. Where
who was it off of? I don't know that.
John Lackey came out of the pen for that. He had a walk-off.
Lackey's final year as a big leaguer.
Yeah, he had a walk-off homer. He always seemed like he hit the Cubs well in big spots, anecdotally. So,
well, he's not this irreverent, but could he be the Kevin Millar of the 25 Cubs?
So now that
energy, presence,
irreverent. I don't know these words, dude. I don't major. I'm not that intelligent of a guy.
Yeah. So,
no, you're right though. Could he bring a little personality? Because this team, we talked about it. Like, it feels like Hap's become the de facto leader of this group. But I like having a guy.
He has. And maybe Horner and Swanson.
Yeah, maybe not on Horner, but like I feel like Turner could bring like David Ross type energy too.
Ooh, okay.
Like 2015, 16, that type of energy. Guy that's been there. And I know Swanson's been to a World Series, won a World Series. I know that. But just another guy been there, done that.
Oh, absolutely.
At a point of his career where he could really help guys. And I do still think there's enough thunder in that bat to be productive. And I'm excited. I'm excited about this move. I'm glad that this move happened before I take my talents over to Las Vegas. I got a chance to discuss it.
Turner is on the roster. That means someone is off. We're going to break it all down, including some injury updates and other news and notes from this week in spring training right after this.
This episode is brought to you by Wonderful Pistachios. Looking for a snack that's both delicious and nutritious? Crack into a good source of protein with Wonderful Pistachios. Wonderful Pistachios is one of the highest protein nuts. Each 1 ounce serving has 6 grams of protein, giving you over 10% of your daily value. Plus, they're packed with fiber and better for you unsaturated fats to help keep you feeling fuller longer. Personally, I love the no shells variety. It's the perfect grab and go snack for busy days. Right here, I have the chili roasted flavor that I have been loving for quite a while now. They help me get through my day. Guys, I'm a muncher. I'm a grazer throughout the day. I don't have time for like a full lunch. And these little green wonders pack an important protein punch to hold me over when I'm hungry. I cannot recommend this chili roasted flavor enough. It is loaded with flavor. So get snacking and get cracking with a snack that packs a protein punch. Visit wonderfulpistachios.com to learn more.
With the first spring training game on Thursday, let's take a look at the updated opening day roster and our first official projection. This is despite me actually showing this graphic probably 4 or 5 times at this point. A couple notes here. Nico Horner and Matt Shaw have been slowed in camp. We've talked about that. They are progressing well. I do think there is still a chance Horner doesn't play in Japan, but I think Shaw will, based on what we're hearing, Sam. Also, Luke Little is building slowly. He's not facing live hitters yet. And Javier Assad hasn't really resumed activity after injuring his oblique last week. So I kept Shaw and Horner on here.
I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did.
Thank you. I have removed Assad, though.
Good.
And we're going to talk about the 5th starter names.
Yeah, because he's not going to be there with the way he's trending.
No. And then Luke Little, who wasn't on the last projection, but he was on, I think, the one before that. And you said you thought he was going to make.
Well,
it.
yeah, but if he's building
Yeah.
slowly, then I still think he'll have a large impact on this team. But then that takes away my prediction, because they're just looking for any excuse. They have so many guys. If one guy isn't perfectly there, they could just send him to the minors.
So as we look at this, I see 3 to 4 spots open, depending on what you think of John Birdie and his $2 million salary.
Well, he'll make the team.
I don't think that makes him a lock.
Oh, I think he's a lock.
Wow.
I think
All
Birdie's
right, well, that's 3 spots then.
Yeah.
Last bench spot, last rotation spot, and last bullpen spot. But even when you look at this roster, I don't see any space. But we know the competition there will be high in volume just because of how many relievers are actually in camp. So
all right, let's take a look.
Yeah. So starting pitchers: Steele, Imanaga, Tyone Boyd, and Ben Brown.
Love it.
In the 5th spot. Bullpen: Presley, Hodge, Miller, Pearson, Thielbar, Brazier, Morgan, and Ray. Catchers: Amaya and Kelly. Infield group: Bush, Horner, Swanson, Shaw, Justin, Turner, and Birdie. And the outfield: Happ, PCA, Tucker, Seiya. And as of right now, I still have Alexander Canario in there, but he's battling with a few guys over the last bench spot. In my opinion. So anything that stands out here, or can we get to those battle groups?
Well, I think what stands out is so explain to me your thought process on it's weird when the thing's up, I'm talking louder for some reason. I don't know why I did that. Explain to me your thought process behind Birdie not being a lock.
Well,
assuming he's healthy, of course.
It's similar to your line of thinking from last segment, that if he is so assuming health, then it would be poor performance. And one of these guys, Brujan, Canario, Lope. So really, if Birdie's a lock, fine.
Well,
I thought he was too.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that these 6 guys, it's actually 5, could be competing for 2 spots. Birdie, Brujan, Canario, Lopez, and Workman.
I think that's right. Okay.
Workman's off the projection today because Turner signed.
Right.
But he still has till earlier mid-March before they could actually even do anything with him on the roster, including offering him back to Detroit.
So here, this is I'm not as good at this as you are. This is foreign territory for me, but this is what I want to say.
Okay.
Yesterday, Council clearly answered a question from, I believe it was Bruce, about backup center field. And the first name he mentioned was Alcantara, right?
Yeah.
And so if it's Alcantara, is there a chance that Canario just gets, moved for cash considerations or moved in a trade, and then Alcantara gets that final outfield spot to open the season?
Yeah, well, no, I don't. I don't think there's a chance. Well, first of all, I don't think there's a chance Alcantara's a bench player.
Okay.
I think Craig is answering Bruce's question that we've answered on this show.
CA got hurt.
Right.
Yeah.
But I do think Brujan could make it over Canario. He could do center field in a pinch.
Got it.
And then in that scenario, Canario would be traded to the Marlins or the Rockies or the Sox, whatever, just for some cash. So, Nicky Lopez, I think, unless Birdie is really dogging it out there, I don't see a spot for Lopez except for, if Horner opens the year on the IL.
Yeah, well, that's why. Well, yeah, absolutely.
And last rotation spot, Assad Brown, Chris Flexen, who was also added Tuesday, but on a minor league deal, Poteet and Wicks is the competition there for the fifth job, Sam.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about this comp?
And I think there's a couple non-roster invitees we'll discuss later that may get themselves in this conversation. Obviously, this isn't a group of players that I'm enthralled over for the fifth starter spot. Yeah, I would love it to be Brown, but I'm going to talk about this for tomorrow's show. Mm-hmm. One of the big things is you listen to Craig and you listen to Jed, you listen to Carter. It's depth and quantity. And so I just don't think even if Brown wins the job, they got Colin Ray for a reason. It's not going to be a classic.
Oh, that's right. I should put him in here.
Well, you put him on the bullpen spot. Same thing.
Yeah.
Even if it's if Brown's the fifth starter, he might only go 4 2/3 every time anyway, and it might even act like a 6-man rotation because maybe that's the day where Ray piggybacks off of him or whatever. And I think this roster, and I'm kind of I'm overlapping on what I'm going to talk about tomorrow, but this roster is kind of made for Craig to be the guy we thought he was. There's a lot of juggling. There's a lot of quantity. Right. How can he turn all of these guys into the most efficient, optimized winning product? Because, can you flash up the main roster one more time? I just want to do my whole thing here. Okay. The starting pitching, fine. You know what I mean? It's fine. Yeah. The relievers, it really doesn't feel a whole lot different to me than it did last year. I'm sorry.
It's a bad take.
It's just instead of Alzolay
I have to cut you off.
Yeah.
Let me show you the roster from last year.
Okay.
To open the year.
Please.
Hey, Neris not on a team. Quas not on a team. Smiley not on a team. Almonte not on a team. And if you want to throw more Stokes in the fire, Gomes out of baseball, Cooper out of baseball, Mastro should be out of baseball, Madrigal should be out of baseball.
Well,
I mean, this roster was horrible. Just horrible last year what they did, especially with the bullpen.
No, I think it's but again,
just horrible what they did.
Hindsight's 2020. Hindsight's 2020. It's definitely a better roster.
Well, I have contacts.
But who's to say that if Ryan Presley were to have a year like Neris did, would he still be in baseball next year? That's the type of thing.
You know what? You're right.
And or a guy like Brazier. This bullpen will be better, but I go back to that. I just have a little bit of concern there. Hodge was live last year. I'm just expressing my concerns.
Yeah.
Catcher, I feel better about. Infield, Bush, Horner, Swanson, Shaw, Turner, Birdie. I mean, in hindsight, with what we got from Morrell, right? And then the outfield is just loaded. I mean,
yeah.
It's really is. I mean, you look at those names there. I mean, is that the best position group? Is that one of the best 3-4 position groups, in this game? So
well, let's keep talking about the bullpen, including the veteran non-roster invitees that are in camp right after this.
This episode is brought to you by Select Quote. In sports, having a winning strategy is everything. It's how the best teams make it to the Super Bowl, the World Series, and the Olympics. The same goes for life. Having a strategy like life insurance from Select Quote can protect your financial legacy and keep your family's future secure. Select Quote makes it easy to find the perfect life insurance policy. As one of America's leading insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, they've helped over 2 million customers find $700 billion in coverage since 1985. What a year for the Bears that was. What sets Select Quote apart is their personal touch. Unlike other brokers that offer one-size-fit-all policies, their licensed agents tailor coverage to fit your unique needs. If you're in good health, you might even qualify for same-day coverage up to $5 million. No medical exam required. And it's more affordable than you'd think. You can get up to $1 million in coverage for as little as $20 a month. Get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedon. Go to selectquote.com/lockedon today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedon. Select Quote. They shop, you.
Cubs have 60 players in spring camp, which isn't an unusually high number. It actually might be kind of on the low side, but maybe that highlights the quality depth they have instead of trying to throw a bunch of darts at the board. For example, the White Sox have 70 players in camp right now. This segment, we are going to discuss the veteran non-roster players. We'll do prospects on Friday's episode. For example, Matt Shaw's a non-roster guy. But this right here, we're just going to talk about the veterans. So I do want to rewind a little bit to the bullpen.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because, Fangraphs projects, and Marquee had a projection as well. I guess maybe they copied Fangraphs, but I don't know that for sure. They had Eli Morgan beginning the year at AAA Iowa and Nate Pearson. And so in absence of those guys, they had Merriweather and Thompson making it. And those guys are already in the organization. But I'm saying if there is a mix for the last bullpen spot, I think it's Merriweather, Thompson, Little if he's healthy, Palencia if he could ever throw strikes consistently. And then I also put, as we begin here, the NRI dudes like Brad Keller, Trevor Richards, former setup man for the Blue Jays. And then I got one name to watch, Sam. I don't know if you've heard of this guy yet. Antonio Santos, 28 years old, signed out of the Mexican League last summer by the Cubs, posted a 3.9 ERA and a 1.04 WHIP with 80 strikeouts and 70 innings at AA Tennessee, which is AA Knoxville nowadays, by the way. So that's just a very under the radar name. Me putting my GM hat on. Here's all the non-roster names. There's a lot of pitchers, a couple catchers in there, Flexen, who they just got.
For the audio peeps, you want to
former Cub Brandon Hughes.
You want to just say them all real quick.
Lopez, Nicky Lopez, we already talked about. So couple catchers, Carlos Perez and Reese McGuire, and then just a fleet of pitchers. Flexen, Keller, Richards, Hughes, Ben Heller, Brooks Kriske, Phil Bickford, and Santos. These guys will have numbers ranging from the offensive line variety, 50s and 60s, to the receivers in the 80s.
Hey, don't knock yourself. The last time you put your GM cap on, you said the Cubs could trade for Kyle Tucker.
Oh, that's right.
That's
right.
Yeah. Well, you just threw a lot at me.
Yeah, I know.
And you just named like 84 players. So I'm going to do my best to just kind of weave through that. And I'm going to start with the beginning where you talked about Thompson and Merriweather.
Right. There's no reason those guys should make it over Eli Morgan.
Well,
right?
I'm fascinated by that whole situation. Yeah. And most of the time, I could tell you that it works itself out with injuries.
Oh, that's true.
Because, like, man, I was talking to my dad about this. It is unbelievable just how different spring training is. You feel like it's a successful day at spring training when you just don't hear any injury news about your players. I mean, we're not even a week in. Assad, Shaw, Birdsell. I mean, and it's every team. It's like this. So
yeah,
my guess is it'll work out. I would be pretty surprised if all things considered, if all things equal and healthy, the Cubs would start with Eli Morgan, not on the big league club after trading for him. Thompson has always been an interesting guy that again shows flashes of being really good, but then just every 3 or 4 outings, we'll have an outing where you just kind of say, and I know I've said it, maybe it's time for a change of scenery. And then Merriweather last year, they got so much good out of him in 2023. He had that very odd rib injury in the beginning of 24. And when he came back, he just flat out wasn't the same guy that he was in 2023. So I think the way he looks in camp and in spring training will go a long ways to determine his fate with the Cubs. And then as far as the non-roster guys, the only guy that sticks out to me is Nicky Lopez, just because he's my type of player. He's a guy that he just puts bat to ball. I like bat to ball guys. He's like kind of like a little bit of a lefty Madrigal-ish. Had a really good season. I want to say it was 2021. I'll pull that up right now because I had it right in front of me and hit exit out. But yeah, he was really good in 2021. He batted 300 and had a 4.4 wins above replacement. And then since then, he just hasn't been close to the same guy. But that's again, maybe something happens to Birdie, or maybe he just maybe you're right. Birdie's not a lock. The way I look at it right now is I have third base, Shaw and Birdie. Mm-hmm. Shortstop, Dansby, Nico, and Birdie. Second base is really Nico, and then that's the opening for Nicky Lopez. Would be, like you said, if something goes on with Nico, because that's why I think Birdie's a lock, is he can play every position there. And if something happens to Nico, then fine.
Yeah, and some outfield.
And some outfield. First base, Bush and Turner. DH, Seiya Turner. And then we know the outfield situation. So I think that's what it's like. But if Nico's not completely healthy or something does happen in spring training, I think the next guy up would be a Nicky Lopez. I prefer his skill set more to a Vidal Brujan, but that's also admitting that, I've watched a lot more Nicky Lopez than Brujan. So, who knows? Brujan's young.
Cubs Dodgers, 2:05 p.m. Central, both Thursday and Friday. It is going to be Cody Poteet starting on Thursday. First game of the Tokyo series will be a traditional pitching plan, starter to bullpen is what Council hinted at. That's going to be Imanaga to 4 or 5 relievers would be my guess there.
How long do you think Imanaga goes? Like 4?
Yeah, I 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And then second game, Council hinted at starters. So that might be like Steele to Tyone to Boyd.
That's fun.
For 9 innings. I like that. Yeah.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah, it is.
So I think
it's not official yet, but
no, but I actually think what you just said, just kind of, off the top of your head, actually makes a ton of baseball sense. You go Steele, Tyone to Boyd, they can't really platoon anything there.
I love it.
So I'm very interested. I think I'm more into spring training, the day-to-day this year, because Japan's coming up and because there is so much positional competition. Like, I do really believe, like, to your point, now that I think about it, if a guy like Vidal Brujan, hypothetically has a David Bodie spring of last year or 2 years ago, like that may be enough to get him, to just ride the hot hand, because the margins are really thin between those guys.
Yes.
So I'm going to be watching that stuff a lot more closely. Usually I just watch the starters and, kind of move on.
Yeah.
But with the way the last 2 years have gone, spring training form, especially for pitching, has translated early in the campaign.
Absolutely. And that all starts on Thursday. Sam will be back tomorrow solo with Kyle Tucker and a whole lot more. Thank you so much for checking out this episode. We are here 5 days a week talking about all things Cubs. Subscribe to our channel on YouTube as we make the push to 13,000 subs. And we're streaming worldwide on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Sirius XM, and more. All right. He's Sam Olver. I'm Matt Cozy, and you are now Locked On Cubs.
Go Cubs.